Hello, I'm here. It worked. How about that? And there's sound. So is it echoing here? It feels echoey. But hello, and thanks very much for coming in. And we've got some folks already here. So I want to say hi. So Paul is here. Hello, Paul. Great to see you. He comes in early, like lots. And oh, that was just me. Jordy, you look like you're new. I haven't seen you before. Thanks very much for coming on, Jordy. And that was me saying hi to Jordy. And then there's Eric. Hello, everybody. Thanks very much for coming on. If you haven't said hi, I would love to say hi. But I don't know what's this. I don't know. So thank you very much for coming by. I think we're gonna have a lot of fun today because I did some fun stuff to the diorama this week, and Oscar helped out greatly. It was a weird thing because I knew I wanted to add something to the diorama that I hadn't seen in a lot of photographs, but I knew it had to be there, which is grass and weeds. And so I did that, and I want to see what you think. I got some nice close pictures, stuff like that, and I've got reasons why and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I got a couple of comments, and everybody was really nice, but they said, I haven't seen, like at Passchendaele and stuff like that, I haven't seen grass in any of the photographs. And I agree, but we'll get to that. So I worked on that, and I did some lighting that was sorely needed, and one bit of lighting that I hadn't done forever. And really, I needed to do it. So I'm really glad I did. Hey, Maverick Borealis is here. Hello. Thank you very much coming by. Greetings. I'm glad to have you here. Martin is here. Hello. Hello, Martin from Holland. John. Hello, John. How's it going? And Mark is here. Sorry about it. We got to leave around 12:03. That's okay, Mark. We'll get all to the good stuff at the beginning. How about that? And then Scott's here. Hello, big howdy, everybody from Texas. Be sure you like and subscribe. We know to grow this channel. I'm looking forward to learning more about how to apply grass. That's awesome. Thanks very much. Oh, and for that, we do have a little demo that I'll use today. This is my little donkey here, my demo mule, and I'm gonna show you how to do some grass. And I got the big lens out for doing the top down, so I think it's gonna look really cool. So let me give you a preview of that real quick. Bob D, how about that? So I think this will look good, and I can get even tighter. And so we're going to show you how I did grass on this and how I like to do grass now, because I think the way I do grass has changed a little bit. I used to think about doing bunches first and kind of getting these little, bunches of grass. Now I just do them right on, the terrain, and I love it. Hey, Go For It Painting is here. Hello, and thanks very much for coming by. That's really, really cool. Well, thanks again, everybody, for coming by. I'm going to show you some slides and go through what I did this week and show you some pictures, and I'll come in and out and all that kind of stuff, and we're going to do some demos. Because I got a couple of demos, because I made some lights that I really like, and I found this really, really cool thing to make like a little tiny like a lampshade over a 1 millimeter light, LED. So it looks really cool, and I'll show you that, and I think you really like it. Maverick said, yeah, you mean the Museum of Flight when we had the malls? Yeah, very, very cool, Maverick. That's wonderful. Thanks very much. So let's get into this real quickly. So we're going to be talking about grass and lighting. I had a different title, but because there was a lot more that I did, but I figured we could just keep it to this today. But we can talk about whatever. So if you do have questions, please ask. So the WW1 Trench Diorama, as I go over this thing and I try to figure out, are you okay, buddy? I got to see if Oscar's okay. I try to figure out this name a couple of times. People come back and say, what's wrong with WW1 Trench? I'm like, well, nothing really. I think it's okay. And then all these funky names I came up with, and I say funky on my side, not the people that suggested. I don't want to offend anybody because they're like, oh, I'll never tell you anything ever again. But yeah, I think some of these are kind of fun, but I don't know. Frankly, I kind of like WW1 Trench. I mean, that's what everybody knows it as. So it might stay WW1 Trench. I don't know. We'll see. So I got a lot more. So let me show you here. There's a Livens flame projector. That's what this diorama is about. I got to start working on like some of the signage and stuff like that for a show that's coming up. I was at the show and it was really, really fun, but now I've got another one coming up. And so I think I need to work on some signage. So at the beginning of the week, this is where everything kind of stood. And I wanted to show you these pictures because I think it looks like a standard, you see a WW1 trench and it's a lot of dirt, a lot of debris, a lot of barbed wire, a lot of sandbags. It's very monochromatic, I guess, and that's how it is. And I think it looks fine. But, and this is something else that I worked on. See the edges there? The edges where the black facade ends, and then you see the edge of the dirt there, and they got the little rocks and stuff in there, and then it goes into the sap or the tunnel. Well, that I thought needed a little bit more too, because it was like, I thought it looked good, but I think it needed more. So I came in and started working with it. So this week I started off, and this is how I started off. I just went bonkers. I took and did grass, not all over it. I wanted it kind of stronger near the, the vehicle that I'm considering, friendly territory. And as we moved away from that, I wanted to go a little less. So here, there's a fair amount, and there's two types of grass and weeds. We're going to look at both of those. And so here on the back one, I've got more. And then when we look at the further one, there's like two kind of grass deals that sprouted up, but there's a lot of weeds and stuff. And that's kind of how I left it. And I hope I can get some better. I know I can get some better pictures. Here we go. But there was two sets. This is after it dried a little bit and I did some trimming, because you put them in and then trim them. And I'm going to show you how I trim them, because I trim them with a little trimmer. I trim them with this and it works great. This is an old like beard trimmer that I had. And when it was like starting to pull and not be so friendly, I just converted it to shop tool, and it works fantastic. And I'll show you how that works. And kind of there's a method about how I go about it. First I kind of top it, and then I kind of go down into it to kind of get the differences. You don't want it to look sculpted. You don't want it to look like a bush or something like that you've already like done in your topiary or something. No, this is a wild growing thing. And so it's not gotten trimmed or anything like that. It's just growing and everybody's ignoring it or stepping on it or whatever. So that I think we can simulate. And so we'll look at that later. And then here's just like the down, looking straight down. And if you can kind of tell, it added some color. And that's what this shot, I try to do like a high contrast here to try to get a better color. But you see, it's not so monochromatic anymore. It does actually have a little bit of color. It's not a lot, but I think that little bit of color really adds a lot to it. I'll turn off my picture-in-picture. So I like it. And I'm ready to hear what anybody says about that, because you're 100% correct if you think that there is no grass or weeds or any greenery at all. And there's certainly pictures that I've seen that even though it's in black and white, you can tell there's nothing. There are other pictures I've seen where there is some. And this is, in this storyline, this is removed from the very front lines. They dig toward the line, but this is like a set of lines back. That's also the reason with the medic station. That's also the reason for the vehicle access. All of that means it's a little bit further back. So a little bit further back from the action, I believe that there would be some sprouting of grasses. I mean, it just comes in on the wind. And like weeds just come up, little clumps, whatever. So tell me what you think. I have some more folks here Neil is here. Hello, Neil. I hope you're doing well. I did not get your pictures in. I am so sorry. Folks, I promised you I'd get them. Maybe there's something I can do, but I did not get your pictures in. I had a problem with our cable company this morning. So I was working on that before the presentation. But we are going to have Neil Bullard's pictures. He's done some amazing pictures. And I think the photographs, taking shots of your diorama or your model or your display, however you want to do it, Neil has a lot to tell us because he's not just making sure he's got the lighting, making sure he's got, a composition or something like that, making sure the backdrop is right. Because all those things are taken care of. But he goes well beyond that. He adds atmosphere. And in speaking about doing the same kind of thing with my WW1 Trench Diorama, it's very small. Neil works on a much larger scale. That's one of the things that can help me show depth. I'm trying to take, top-down pictures of this, and I can't really get the depth. Well, Neil knows how to do that. And John Robeck, my friend, he's on today. John and I were talking about it because John knows that too. John has worked in the film industry for many years. And so he understands that, and he understands the properties behind it and stuff, because also with his job, his work that he does, he has to understand light and everything like that. Well, these two gentlemen have taught me a lot about lighting, and I'm trying to bring that into the diorama. So we're going to look at Neil's stuff in the future, and then Neil's going to be on and talk with us, which I'm really excited about. So thanks very much, Neil. John Hayes is here. I was thinking about you the other day, John. Hello from Windsor. John has been on the show a few times, and he's got a question, so we're going to get to that right next, John. But I was just remembering when you showed us, or you asked the question about adding Mod Podge to some fabric, and I'm like, no, I hadn't done that, and I did it, and it was brilliant because it made it very stiff. And I use that same material from that same experiment, John, where when I am trying to make sandbags, when I make my sandbags out of milliput now, not the air dry, I did that earlier, but this last time I did milliput, I'm using the fabric method that you showed, where I've painted some of that, let it dry so the fabric is stiff, and then I can press that over the sandbags and get real fabric texture on my milliput sandbags. Now, the reason that it works better doing it after I did what you suggested is it holds the fibers more stiff. When I did it before, I just used the regular fabric and you kind of put it on there, but the fabric compresses. So it loses a little bit of its dimension. It loses a little bit of the texture that you're getting from the fabric. By soaking the fabric in Mod Podge, letting it dry, you have all of the texture of the fabric, and it holds up to being pressed into milliput. It's brilliant. So, John, I was doing that 2 weeks ago, and I was thinking about you. Thank you so much. So that was John Hayes' or suggestion one time I tried. I did, and it's just brilliant. So if you haven't done that on your sandbags, that's a good way. If you want to know more about it, I'll explain it again because I just was thinking about it. But it's a really great way to do it. Now, John has a question. For your storyboards, instead of writing material, have buttons for each area with audio recordings, or could have like static radio effects. I really like that idea. And John, we've been talking about that. I was talking to John Robeck about, putting together a story here. Putting together, and I talked to a couple other people about it as well. But putting together a story for this, because I believe that this diorama has enough kind of, little individual vignettes to tell a story, to construct and weave a story out of it, and to have sound effects and stuff like that. I found a piece of music this week that I wanted to do like a trailer, like a movie trailer on this. So I don't know. Maybe this weekend I'll work on. Well, I'm going to work on it this weekend, so I don't want to promise it though, because I do that and then I don't do it. But the cool thing is I'm thinking the way you're thinking, John. I think it would be neat to have sound effects and other aspects of this to kind of come a little bit to life. I think, and I've talked about this before, I think there is a little bit of a line that you can cross where it's just too gimmicky. You know, it's just a little over the top, a little overcooked. It's just not. What I really like is, like you're suggesting, where you go up and it's a nicely spoken or whatever. You push a little button, it's nice. It's not ta-dun, ta-dun, you know, it's not, you know, something like out of a Woody Woodpecker cartoon or something like that. It's just, you know, real nice, well presented, but not overly done. Because I mean, these are in the house, these are in my den, and I just want it to be, you know, chill, but interactive as well. Because when I take it to a show, I want people to get into it and understand what I'm talking about. Which brings up another point, but I want to get to other people's things. But really good question, John. I do like that a lot. I have talked to John Robeck specifically about sound effects and audio. It's like an audio device, something we talked about. I can't remember what the heck it is, but it goes with you know, the other stuff I've done. So it's possible. So I like it. Thanks very much. Neil, depends on the type of year, how much action the area was getting. Yeah, fair point. Because a lot of times, okay, so let's get down to the basics here. We're going to be putting in an installation. We don't know necessarily how long it's going to take, but we have to develop this weapon. They're not going to put that in a line, just like Neil's saying here. They're not going to put that fortification, labs, whatever, so close to the line that they may lose that. I mean, there's confidence, but there's idiocy. So they're going to want to have that back away from the lines. And what Neil is referencing, I believe, is, you know, the grass part that I was talking about before. Grass closer or further away. I believe further away. There's going to be a little bit of grass, and we're going to look at both of those, like I said before. Larger scale, smaller workshop. There you go. Yeah, that is so funny because I've got a pretty relatively large workshop here. You know, it's the workshop proper is about 640 square feet. And then I've got a 100 square foot office, 10 by 10 office. Neil, I don't know what your square footage is, Neil, but it is wall to wall diorama, and it's amazing. So it's really cool. And you'll see some examples of that. And I am so sorry. I apologize. I just literally ran out of time. I was putting slides in this deal right up until the time we started. John, I learned that method with Mod Podge long ago from sources I've searched, and it's a wonderful method, John. It really worked out real nice. And I loved, like I say, it held up. The fabric held up with the Mod Podge on it. Its pattern so much better after it had the Mod Podge on it when I was putting that pattern into the sandbags. They looked really good. I mean, I'm biased, but I think they looked amazing because of that. So thanks very, very much, John. And great to see you. It's been a little while. So back to this. I am going to show you now on the down cam. I got to restart it because it gets a little wonky. It's got like a timer or something like that. So restarting it there, and I will show you how I do it. And I've got one that I started a little bit earlier. So it's partially dry because that's part of the technique, is having it partially dry to do some of the things that you're doing with these clumps of grasses that you're putting in. Okay. Have you tried? I'm sorry. Neil says, my diorama is 6 by 4 foot. Workshop is 6 by 8. That's wonderful. So literally half of the whole thing is diorama. That's amazing, Neil. And then John says, have you tried involving moving parts and modeling? Not yet, but I really like that idea because I like the kinetic, parts to it. So, but let's take a look at this now. So I'm going to show you how I do grass, and grass is not hard. I don't think. But if you haven't done it before, it's just as easy as you think it would be, I guess, is the best way to put it. So the first thing I'm going to show you, if I can bloody find it. Sorry, excuse my language. So these are the bags of the different grasses that I'm using. And gosh, I've had these for a long time. Now, this is supposed to be late summer. And so I did want a little bit of harvest gold. This is field grass harvest gold. I wanted to show that a little bit of stuff was going. I wanted to have some light stuff. It's not the vibrant green, but I am mixing these. So what I do is I just take out of here about that much, okay? And I'll set that there. From each of these, it's not a lot. Actually, I do a little bit less of this, so I don't want a heck of a lot. I just want it to show up. Okay, so I take each of those and I kind of bring them together, okay? And then I'm going to cut them up. And they're not even. I'm not trying to even them out. I want them at different lengths. I'm going to cut these essentially into thirds into this little, this is a coffee tin top. See, that's where it's all even. I don't necessarily want it even, so I don't want them the same length. I want them to be different lengths. So now I can cut it. Okay. So now I've just got this pile. How am I going to get these nice things? Well, even if it's all just created like this. Oh, the other thing I want to mention is this. I'm very sorry to say I forgot. I'm also adding in some very, very fine grass. This is like 2 or 3 millimeter grass. And so this is very, very short, 2 to 3 millimeters, like this long, not even a quarter of an inch, eighth of an inch is about. And what that allows me to do is when I'm gathering these up to get a bunch together to put in, it adds a little bulk to the base. Okay, so now I've kind of mixed them up, okay? I'll grab a little bit of it, and now here's where I kind of sort it. There's both the long fibers and that short stuff in here. I'm just going to pull these, and by doing it like this, on both sides, I'm getting rid of all the ones that aren't lined up, okay? And I get a bunch about like that. Now I decide how long I want. Oh, now Oscar needs one down. You want down, buddy? Come on. Sorry about that, folks. When I decide this, I want generally how tall I want it, but I am going to be able to cut it down. But if you can get the height you want with the look you want, meaning there's a little bit more down here, it's a little bit more sparse up here, that's wonderful. So find what I want, I turn it around, keep the side that I want, and I cut away because I want a flat bottom on the bunch that I'm creating. Okay? So there's the top that I want. There's a flat bottom. So when I've got that, I'll get this in my hand, move this out of the way. Let's just bring this over. Now here you see I've got some white glue that I previously did, and it's not white glue actually, it's scenic glue from Woodland Scenics. But you see I'm going to kind of, there's kind of a line there. So what I can do is I can either go in and add to this one by just putting some in, and when I'm putting it in, I'm not coming down like this. I'm coming in from the side because I don't want to disturb the ones that are there. This time though, I'm just going to go in this fresh, and I'm going to show you a different way. I'm going to do this line. So I kind of want a line of it. And so before I put it in, I'm just going to kind of spread them out in my fingers. See how I'm doing? Here they're gathered together. I'm just spreading them out in my fingers a little bit. Come in kind of at the side and work them into the glue, and then stand them up. And then stand them up tall. Now, I'm going to leave them there for a little bit. I don't want to touch those for a little bit. Now, these have been sitting for about 10 minutes or so, okay? So I'm going to switch to those. After about 10 minutes, what they'll do is they'll make up their own little clumps, and if you want, you can move them. I mean, that looks like a really nice, clump right there. I think that looks fine. But if I did want to break this up, now is the time to do it. About 10 minutes in, what I can do is I can come in here, and there's a little skin created there, and I can just pull that out, and I can start repositioning these and spreading this thing out. I'm going to get another, here I'll just use a stylus so I have something to help it release. I also wet the tip of these. These are stainless, by the way. So I'm grabbing that, and I can I can just bring that out and put it right there. See, like that? So now, again, you don't have to do that. That's one of the things you can do. I did it because I wanted to make mine a lot sparser. And what I did was I went in and took some of the lighter color and set it in there. Okay, so now that one's also, because it's dried a little bit more, it can also be trimmed. And so that's where the trimmer comes in. And I told you it's obviously, it's just kind of how you think about it, except that what I try to do, and I'm going to tilt this just so you can see it a little bit better. What I do is I come in and I kind of top it first by, just going straight across the top to establish the height that I want. Just like that. So that doesn't look very natural because it's like that. So then what I do is I'll come in and I'll stab down from the top, maybe at a little bit of an angle or something like that, but I'm working down and breaking up the height so they're not all the same height and it doesn't look like it's a hedge that's been trimmed. There you go. And if you can see that now, it's quite a bit shorter. And because I trimmed it with that, it looks great. Now, once I've got that in there, remember this short stuff. If I want to have, let's say, a patch connecting two patches of grass, it's just like you would think, I just bring this in. And, I used to think you have to have a static grass applicator. And I had one, but I broke it. So I just come in like that. And now this has got some long pieces in it. It's got some short pieces in it. It's got all kinds of stuff in here. That's perfectly fine. I'm just going to sprinkle that over the top. And I want to do it so I don't see the, I'm going to get some of the stuff that doesn't have the long in it. I'm going to do it so I don't see the glue anymore. I'm going to let it just really cover it up because then I'm going to knock it away. Not all of that's going to stay on there. I just want some to stick. And then I'm going to open another bag here. I got some more. Some to stick, but I want some to fall away. So that's a big part of it. So now, while that's going on, I'm going to show you how to do weeds. Okay, so we're going to come back to this, but we're going to do some weeds right down here. I'm going to check to see if there's any questions real quick. Let's go back here. John says, curious, I wonder if someone used hair punching needle used in special effects for making facial hair just for gathering several colors of grass. That we blended grass. Yeah, I actually thought about doing something like that, John, because I have a needle that, you just cut the needle off with the eye, so you cut the eye off the needle. And so you can have a punch that you can push into stuff. Didn't work that great. It worked great when I was rigging, like for a boat that I did for just rigging stuff. But yeah, I don't know. I've never done it, but yeah, it might work. I think the material that I'm going into, not being silicone, have some problems. When I did the little in the front of the vehicle here, in between the road wheels and the tracks, I did some sprouts up there. Basically, I punched a hole and I shoved some grass into it. And I did that method where you just basically, you lay the grass over it and you push in the middle. And so the grass goes up and then down into the hole like that. That worked okay. But when I came back out, it wanted to stick. And I think that's where the silicone, that you're doing for like hair, facial hair on a model, that's where the silicone helps to hold the hair as you're pulling it back out. Whereas here, it didn't. But anyway, it's a great job, or a great idea to try it. Did you ever make clumps of grass ahead on a flat surface for application later? I did, and that was my old process, and that's a really good point, John. So what I have is, this is really fun, and I think I've shown it before long time ago, but this is a little aluminum like baking pan that I have, and my dad made this in high school. So thank you very much. Could have been junior high for all I know. But anyway, so I take this and I can put wax paper on top of it. And then when you have a static grass applicator, you put the electrode to here, the negative, and then you put the ground here, and then the thing, and then you go over it and you drop glue on that wax paper, and then this will help, conduct so that it works on that. Otherwise, I could do it just like I'm doing here on the wax paper, but there's a difference. My method with the big clump of grass, I'm trying to make it so it works with the contour because I got pretty rough ground. Like here, I'm working on a pretty good slope and stuff like that. And I think that just that part helps it stick a lot better. If I'm doing it on a flat piece and then I glue it down, I've done that. It doesn't quite fit in, because it's flat. And when that glue is dry, though it is a little bit flexible, it doesn't, get down into the gravel and in the dirt and stuff like that. So you can certainly do it. And I know you can buy those products to do it. And it's a great way to do it. Personally, I like this method. I think it works pretty good, So anyway, so let me go back to this. I think I got all the questions almost. I was just thinking for gathering different shades of grass, not for punching in the surface. Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, fair point, John. That's a good idea. Okay, so let's go back to our picture because I think this has sat here long enough. I'm just going to shake it off. So I'm literally just going to shake it off like so. I don't want to get too rough with it, but look at that. So now if you see any white there, remember, this is Woodland Scenics. When it dries, it's going to be flat and it's going to be transparent. You're not going to see it. So that is going to look like just some rough grass patch. But the next thing that I think is really worth looking into is weeds. And I do my weeds like this. I like to keep the little caps from milk and containers and things like that. So that's what this is. It's a little milk cap. And I put some of this. Now this is very, very fine Woodland Scenics turf. And again, it's I think what it is, it's a sponge material that is ground and then sorted into this very fine stuff. Well, it's the fine that you want for weeds. And then I'll take my 50-50 mix of Mod Podge and water, and I'm actually mixing it so it's relatively wet. I'm not trying to really make a paste. I'm actually trying to make just something that I can paint with, right? That has a little bit on it. I don't want a heck of a lot. And so what I'm going to do with that now is I'm just going to come in here and I'm going to start painting. That's it. And once you get it on here, you'll see that as you're doing this, it just drops a little bit here and there as you're going. If you find clumps, you go back and you get some more Mod Podge. Oop, I need another deal with some liquid Mod Podge here. You just grab a little bit more Mod Podge and flatten it out because you don't want to, you're not trying to grate something huge. These are weeds. These are volunteers. Just, the weeds come in on the wind, and so they're just trying to take hold. They're the very first things they'll grow within a day of coming in on the wind. And so that's all you want. You don't want a lot here. And that's what I did on the diorama. So back to that point or that question or that whatever, would they have grasses? Would they have that stuff? I believe they would. And this is the kind of thing I think they would have. They would have just some wild grasses that, like thrushes, they would just grow up real quick, kind of wild, here and there, very spotty. They would tend to be where there was low. See, so that one on the left-hand side, what I'm saying here in the picture is that here it's a little bit low. There's going to be a little bit more water in the lower area, so there's going to be a little bit more grass there. Here it's in a shade. It's behind a wall. It's up against it. You know, it's going to retain a little bit more water. So there's going to be some grasses, and then the weeds. They're just interdispersed here and there. And when you look very closely at the diorama, that's exactly what it's like. It looks like little tiny little bunches of weeds, and I really like it. I think it personally came out great. The folks that commented online, they just said, well, you know, the pictures I've seen don't have it. And I 100% agree. I just, like Neil commented earlier, I think it's proximity to the front line, you know, how far away you were. Because we know at some point, you know, you get far enough away, there's grass. And so that's kind of where I'm at. So I hope it doesn't offend anybody. I mean, there's people that have relatives that fought in the Great War. Mine didn't. My grandfather was 18 years old in 1918. He was born in 1900, so he wasn't in the war. Actually, he went in the Navy. But yeah, they didn't in some areas because it was so heavily bombed and there was just so much going on. It literally killed the plant life. I mean, birds would fly over some battle zones and drop to the ground. It's just terrible. So yeah, you got to be a little bit more than I've never seen it. I'm not saying those people are wrong. They haven't seen it, but it doesn't mean that it wasn't there. And I could be wrong. I'm not going to say I'm 100% right. I could be wrong. Maybe it was bad. Maybe they did have something that couldn't let that grow. I don't know, honestly, but my interpretation has grass, and I'm going to leave it there. Okay, so I'm going to look at some questions real quick, and then I want to show you how I did this light because I really like these little lights that I made. Let me see. Tibetan lambs. Sorry. Thank you, gathering the. I'm sorry, folks. Okay, I just wanted to get back to it. So Neil says Tibetan lambs wool dyed green is amazing for hair, moss areas I use for beards on my figures. Oh, that's very, very cool. And I bet it's really super fine too for the beards. I don't know where you would get that. I'd love to find out. These are the great things we want to talk about, Neil, when we have you on. John says what may or may not look cool would be in a certain location where you have grass bent in one direction, then have clothing on the materials with movement in the same direction. See if people notice. I have seen this done in Vietnam scenes where it's, you know, rotor wash from a chopper, and it does look very, very cool. I don't know how hard it would be to do. I kind of think it would be okay, even the method I'm doing here, because there's a point where the glue, you know, gets to a point where you can move it back and forth and it'll move and stay. I mean, I was able to take the outsides of these little shrubs that I have. Let's just go to a picture real quick. I was able to go to the outsides of these little shrubs that I have here and just like pull them down after it's sat for a while, just like this, and they basically stay. So I can get the look of something, you know, kind of you know, falling back. And so to be able to do where either the wind is pushing the grass or people walking through, like patrolling through a wheat field. Oh my gosh. And I have an idea for wheat, how to make wheat. So that is something else I'm working on. So anyway, yeah, I really like that idea, John. Very, very cool. Neil says, if the area of the battle was good land, there would be grass and most, etc., on the back of the same stumps on the ground. Yeah, because I mean, this was farmland. A lot of this was farmland where they fought. John, there's a timeline to see these things too. The more war, the less flora, but it was there at the start. Absolutely. Thanks, John. And then John says, I want to try fun fur for grass. Oh, there you go. Now, where's fun fur? I've not seen that. Is that maybe a different name for the stuff that John's saying? Is it Tibetan lamb's wool? I wonder. I'd like to know, John. You are in the know, and I would like to know, sir. So, okay. So now I want to show you some lighting. So we're going to go here, there. That's where we're going to go. So that is lighting. So these are very cool. So now the question is, when trying to make lights, scale lights, where do you go? Well, this is where I went. It's a nut. It's a cap screw, technically, but these cap screws are cheap. And so these cap screws, I noticed at one point when I tightened it down, the top of it popped right off. And I said, hey, wait a minute. That's perfect because it's tiny and I can make a lampshade out of it. And so that's exactly what I did. So I took those, and I'll show you how to take these off. That's going to be a demo. I'm just going to show you how to use these. I took it off. I drilled a hole in it. I made it into a lampshade. Then I made like a little base. I bent the sprue, some tubing, and then put a base on it. And these are my pretty industrial look. And I have to admit, they're a little bit more 30s than 1916. But, you know, I did see some, I looked at 1916, you know, sconce, and something very similar to this came up. And that's how they look mounted in. I still got to weather them and stuff like that. I mounted them last night, and I think they look great. And I'm telling you, look at the light. So they're on the left-hand side. The lighting is for the vertical shaft. And, you know, in the past, the vertical shaft was the darkest area of the diorama. Everything else had pretty nice lighting, but that had no light. And son of a gun, look at it now. I even turned off most of the lights to kind of pick up. Those two little lights are just bombing light into there. And I really like it. I think they look very nice. I think they do exactly what I wanted. You can see the lift. You could not see the lift hardly unless it was in bright light. And in bright light, it still looks good. The other thing is I put some posters in there, but that's not the thing I'm trying to show, is in there. I put a light inside the medical supply area. So up underneath, I did no fixture. I just did this little cavity by melting it away. And then I put a 1 millimeter light in there. And that 1 millimeter light, I think worked great. It's actually a little bit bright. I think that's what it looked like beforehand. Just didn't have any. Well, that's the one to the left of it. It just didn't have it. So, yeah. I am now going to show you. I'm going to back up how to work with these guys because I really like this lamp. I think it just really came out great. So I'm going to show you how to take these apart because it's not hard. And then you can use it too. So what I got is I'm going to do the top down. And I just want to clear this stuff up so you can see what I have. Okay, let's switch the camera to not that. Sorry. There we go. So here are these little cap screws, and it's a brass cap screw, and I can even get tighter if that's going to help. It's a little brass cap screw, and this is one that is actually machined. It's a bigger one, but it is solid brass. I think you can tell pretty clear. There is a little bit of a seam. Sorry, I want to get right in here. There's a little bit of a seam right there, and it looks more plated. And what you can tell from that when it's been removed is it actually seats inside that, and then they probably plate it after it's seated. So that kind of holds it in. But to get it out of there, to use it, it's not very difficult. I've got a couple of these. This is just, you know, a way to hold it. Because what I want to do is push up from the inside. So I've got a little punch here. And so I just put my punch there. I put it like that. I've just put this on here and I'm squeezing, but not too hard. I just want to squeeze this so it is grabbing on the nut, you know, the nut only, but not the little cap. And then I just pop it and it comes right out, just like so. So I think it's a wonderful little lampshade, or whatever the heck you're building, because I had a heck of a time forming something, you know, this size. I'm able to form larger, like half rounds and stuff like that. But this one, you know, was just really small and nicely formed. And it's got a little bit of a parabolic curve. So if you mount your light right in the bottom, I did mine off center. But if you mount your light right in the bottom, you should get a fair amount of reflection, as is shown in those pictures I showed you. Let's go back to those because, man, this thing is beaming. When we get down in here, it is really, I mean, look at those. That's just two little 1 millimeter lights, and they are just crazy bright. So, and nice clear color. I used a little bit of the black. It's the rubber tire cement. Whenever I'm doing lights like this and making little fixtures and stuff like that, I always like to have some of this. So this is, it's mine is from Hobbytown, but it's the tire glue, and it's CA glue, but it has like very, very fine rubber, bits of rubber in it, and it's a fine glue. But for me, I use it as a light blocker. So like on the top of this, when I've let's say I've drilled my little hole in there and I've put my wires in there and all that kind of stuff, pardon me, you can still get a little bit of light leakage. And so I kind of use it almost as a filler. And it works wonderful. It seeps into those really small areas. When it dries, it's almost completely light, opaque. I don't know, but it blocks that light beautifully. So that's what I use, and that's how I built up these little guys. And I think they're great. I really like them. Need some weathering, but they really throw off a lot of light. And then the other one in the little medical area, the little medical supply area, that one might be a little too bright, frankly. It's cranking, and I don't know if I want it that bright. I can change the resistor, so it's easy enough to kind of balance it with the other light that's in there. It's kind of nice that it's bright because that will draw your eye in, but I don't want to look wrong. It's like that light's too bright. Why is that light that bright? So I got to work on that. One of the things that I didn't talk about that I did do last week also was some of the inclusions. And what I mean by inclusions is just material or debris within the wire. And, I did my pulp water and Mod Podge. I think I talked about that previously. Worked great. I got that stuff in. I have not built more barbed wire because I think the barbed wire is looking pretty darn good. And with all the other stuff around it and doing some painting here and there and stuff like that, I think that the surface is just about done. I still don't have a lot of figures walking through the trench, and I got to have that. So I ordered 3 more kits. One came in, not the one I wanted first. So, but the 2 other kits are on their way. And I got to think that's it. Mr. John Robeck, we should talk because I think I need to talk about that light thing that we were talking about on the back a little bit more, because I've got some other ideas and I found some vellum. And I'm not trying to talk, a big secret between me and John, but John and I have been talking about this lighting effect on the back side of the diorama. And I've made accommodation for that. I actually have, there's something back there. I can't turn it. But I've actually made accommodation for that on the back side where I've got this open area so I can add this light thing that I've been talking to John about. And John and I talk almost every single Friday, at least, because he's a patron. He's a patron of mine, and we have other patrons on. So thank you very much, gentlemen, for being on. But every Friday, we do the group build. And so it's 3 hours, it's 6 to 9. And that's what we do. We talk dioramas, and it's really fun because a lot of times that we're talking, it's about stuff that it's like, I have no idea if that's going to work or not, or I heard about this, or that's a really cool idea, or see what I got. John is really good at finding cool stuff. I mean, a lot of the people I talk to they're really good at finding cool stuff because everybody's bringing me these ideas. But John and I talk a lot about cool stuff. The smoke, which ties into Neil because of the fog. And John showed me something like that. So I'm really excited. I hope you can make it tonight, sir, on the Patreon channel for our 6 to 9 group build. And if anybody else is interested in Patreon, this is a very, very well constructed segue, I would say. I do have a Patreon account, and it's really fun, and you can join, and there's different levels, and you can join for $1 or you can join for no dollars, and you can see some stuff. But for the top tier, like John, what we do is each Friday there is a 3-hour group build, and I missed a couple of Fridays last year, but I think we did pretty good for doing it each Friday, and it's a lot of fun because it's real relaxed. You're on with me. I'm not just yammering the whole time. You're on the screen with me. So if you have the equipment, you can join in too, and you can be part of our discussion and stuff like that. It's a limited thing. Only 5 people can do it. We've already got 3. So it's kind of limited how many people we can let into that because we don't want it to get too big. But yeah, might be fun if you're interested. So think about that. I'm going to read some more ideas because there's always great ideas here and wonderful, wonderful things that people talk about. Fun fur. So the fun fur is at the fabric store. It's just for, and I had a werewolf. Remember when a werewolf in London was really big in the 80s? I had a werewolf mask, and it had the fun fur when I was in high school. That thing smelled like the south end of a northbound cow. I mean, it smelled bad because it was one of those full face masks, right? You put it all. So all the back was hair, and it was just like the rubberized mask, and it smelled terrible in there because you're walking around. It was just terrible. It was fun though. So I know what you mean now. Thanks very much, Neil. I really like that little lamp, and I don't know how big you can get on those cap screws because I'd like to even get some bigger of that. Because the bigger size up that I have is a true fully, billet piece of brass, made into a cap screw. But these plated ones are the ones to look for. Very cool lamp. Thank you very much, John. I love that lamp. The little thing, everything. What I need to do now is, because there's 2 and they're opposing, I need to make a power sub box for them, where there's a box, just a box, and it's probably got like an access handle on it or something like that. And then below that, I've got wires going to each of the lines. And because you're not walking or moving around in there, I can just have it go across. So I'm going to have probably a wire drooping from going from one side to the other. So anyway, I thought that would be a neat little add to it. And I might do a big throw switch. I love those old-timey throw switches, and I haven't built one yet. And it would be kind of fun. I've seen some crazy, someone painted instead of canvas with several sheets of clear plexiglass. Oh, about 4 or 5 standing up with a space in between. Not sure if you're done with modeling. Wow. Instead of canvas with several sheets of clear plexi. Wow, that'd be kind of cool. Okay. Question, Bill. Now that you're in the final stages, are you eager to finish and get it over with, or are you a bit sad to let the project go? Both have happened to me. That's a very good question, Martin. And I'm a little torn on it, to tell you the truth. I have drugged my feet on it because I don't want to do that yet. But I think there, just because that's a hard task, or that's something I haven't figured out in my head, or how I'm going to do it, or something like that. So I've drugged my feet that way. But lately, I believe I'm kind of dragging my feet on finishing because it is so close. Because I don't want it to end. I am enjoying it. I talked about this a little bit about Emma, Carlos, and Ichiro. Now, that's the diorama that I did right before I did WW1 Trench. And it was a very involved story. It was a world story that I created around it, and very engrossing and stuff like that. And I got wrapped up in it. And I lived in that little world for a number of months, just like this. This is not my story, though it is. The other one, Emma, Carlos, and Ichiro, felt very personal because it was all 99% of it created, and I really enjoy that. I like crawling into that world in my mind and thinking about it and moving around. It's like reading a wonderful book. I'm a rereader of books. I have books, and I've talked about this before. I'm a rewatcher of movies. I'm also a rereader of books. And I love a fantasy author, and I've read his writings multiple times. I started reading his the very first book of his that I got was in 1986, and I've been rereading that book ever since, just about every year. Just about, not every year, but just about every year. I absolutely love his book. And he's got a bunch of other books, and I've read all those too, but I mean, I go back to the originals and stuff like that, and I reread them. And the reason is I love to be in the world. I know what happens. I've read the book multiple times. It has nothing to do with that. It's about the immersive effect of living in that little world. And I get that same thing here. There's a transportation device somewhere in your mind where you can start being in there and you can exclude other things out and you can really feel what it feels like to be there. You can hear the sounds, you can smell the smells, and that's a little extreme, but I'm saying you have to push yourself to do it. It's not like, whoa, I'm somewhere else, I'm not time traveling or anything. But you invite these experiences in, and I think when you do that, you can see more in that, and you can feel more in it, because I go there for a feeling. I go into a book or a movie, or even when I'm working in my dioramas, because I want to be there and I want to do things there. It's not that I have a bad world. I have a lovely world. I'm not trying to escape from my world, but it is a way to go somewhere else. And so, yeah, it is hard to say, I'm done and I'll never go back to it. And you know what I mean? That's a hard thing, to close the book on something that you love so much, because that's the other thing. A lot of people that create have a passion. And when people say, because I get asked an awful lot, do you sell these? No, I don't. And the reason is because I build them because I want them. I build them because I love them. I honestly really dig it. I just think they're the coolest things. And when I get excited about my dioramas that I'm building, it's not exciting that like, oh, hey, look at me. No, it's because I've realized something that was in my head and I love it. That's why I get excited about it, right? So, Martin, beautiful question, sir. Wonderful thought, because I think that is a very important thing about what we do. We can take some of what is going on in the world, and we can take something that's going on inside of us, and we can say, this one's more important right now, and I'm going to spend some time there. And I think that's a very cathartic thing. I think that's necessary sometimes for people to step back. I did it for years while working in the corporate, world, software, all that kind of stuff. The ability to step back helped me focus when I was there. Some people don't see it that way. It did for me, because I had an outlet for that creative energy that was being pent up when I couldn't exercise it at work. You can exercise it in this. You can do something that is meant for you. When you're building a model, when you're designing a diorama, you're expressing your innermost thoughts. That's a very powerful thing. I don't know about endorphins or anything like that, but I got to think there's a lot of that going on when I'm building my models, because I do get amped, I do get excited, and I do get these bursts of energy when I complete something that I have really been trying to complete and I haven't been able to. So yeah, wonderful question, Martin. I will drone on forever, but yeah, it's wonderful. And I don't want to leave it, but I know I do, because I am very much excited about my next project. And I've talked a lot about what my next project is. And I've done this before. I talk, and I do something completely different. So please don't be surprised if I should do that. I still have a project that must be done before my next diorama. Not a problem. But my next diorama, I don't know. I'm really enjoying this. But one of the things that I like is, from one diorama, doing something completely different is kind of fun. So in the last 3 dioramas, I did World War II, and it was a video game. Basically, that's Wolfenstein. Emma Carlson Ichiro which was in the future sci-fi Machine and Krieger, which was awesome. I really enjoyed doing it. And when I say it's awesome or something like that, I don't mean it's awesome. You should think it's awesome too. I mean, it was an awesome experience. That's the thing that I just hit Oscar's food bowl. Sorry. It's just an awesome thing. When I say I love that diorama, I'm talking about the experience of building it, because I'm a builder, and that's what the experience is for me. The joy is in the building. And then when other people can see it and they smile, that's the other side of it. So anyway, now I'm just rambling. So American Genius is here. Hello, Christian. Very, very nice to see you. Hello, Bill. How are you doing? Sorry, I haven't got back to you and know how it is busy life, but I press will connect you. No worries, Christian. Everything is good. I'm here every day. You contact me when you can. Christian, we saw some of Christian's American Genius's models last week. Wonderful stuff. And I talked to him about coming on. So really good to see. Got to run. See you next week. Thanks very much, Neil. I will get your pictures in next week. And so we will talk during the week if you'd like to. Okay. And I'll be on WhatsApp. I'll get on WhatsApp and we'll go through that. Benny, hello, Bill. Greetings from Germany. Hello, Benny. Thank you very much for coming in from Germany. I lived in Berlin for 3.5 years. When I was in the military, I was stationed there. So I have very fond and mixed memories of Germany. Germany was wonderful. Thank you very much for coming in, Martin. And of course, Huffman is German. So when did my Falk? I noticed I stalled because I didn't want to say goodbye to that build. It's very true, isn't it? It's so hard to sometimes, and it really is the experiences that you're having doing it. And the Falk is, and I don't know if it's Falk or Falky, but that's got some beautiful lines to it. That's the other thing. When you're working on something that everything goes together and it even fits in your hands properly, because I can imagine smoothing out those nacelles on either side and stuff like that. Just a wonderful feel to it. Beautiful kit, by the way, and beautiful build. That is sometimes hard to say goodbye to. But if you're a model builder, building a diorama is a beautiful way to stay kind of in the moment. John, Bill, like to see you start a build, pass it on to someone, and by the fine several people have said, I think you've mentioned that before, John. Project would have loose guidelines. I like that idea. I think it's neat. I think, how to move it and stuff logistically, that would be the difficult part. But I think it's a really neat idea. I do like that. I think it would be fun to maybe take a few friends that are close, maybe, and pass it around. Maybe we could do that. That'd be kind of fun. Because there's plenty of times where I'm thinking, man, that person built this amazing model, or that person did these amazing figures. I'd like to do some contribution to help show it off. So that's a really good idea, John. Very, very cool idea. Martin says, I can imagine that dioramas can have effect even more than regular builds. I think so. It's time. And I think, for me at least, like when on your Falk or whatever you're building, if you're doing something special, if you're doing some added on aftermarket PE, scratch build, whatever, you become very intimate with that model, meaning that you understand, its curves, and I have to make this work, and that stop line right there. And if I don't get this completely flush, I'm going to have a gap I don't want. You spend that time so dearly in it and so focused on it. I think that does build a familiarity physically with the object, and that it's almost imprinting, right? So you love it for the experiences and what it gave you. Now do that for 7 months. I started this in July, same thing. And working on it daily. Yeah, it is weird going away from that. I 100% agree. To me, model or diorama is the way that I express myself, and I always feel that's why we should call each other artists. Hey, I can't disagree with you. I think that there's so many different ways of expressing yourself, and art can encompass all of them. I've always stayed away from it because, just for me personally, I'm not talking about other people. I'm just thinking for me, uh, my growing up, you know, it was almost a bad word, art. Loved it, but you couldn't do it because because of a lot of reasons, right? It wasn't a job. It wasn't a job that you could go earn money. And I grew up in that very much that kind of family. The family was focused on you got a job, you earn money, and you can do other stuff. That's all fine and well, but the job and earning money was the first thing. And obviously that's super important. But the thing that wasn't really pushed when I was growing up, and I think that some people have that a little bit more, is that, well, art can be the job, art can be the dedication, art can make the living that you want to live out of it. I'm not saying it's easy, but let me ask you this. This is a great question, American Genius. People say it's hard to make a living as an artist. Okay. How hard is it to go get a job and make a living? I got to tell you, I worked in a few jobs, and the last job that I had working for someone else, I worked for 23 years. There was nothing easy about that job. There was nothing easy about any of those jobs. So I think it's because people maybe aren't taught how to do it, because not a lot of people do it, but there are people that do it and are highly successful. And is it chance or luck? I don't think so. I think it's skill and determination and a good head on your shoulders about business. Personally, that's what I think. Now, I have none of those, so I'm not rolling in the money, sure. But the point is, I think that being an artist, if you have the right people and support structures like I do now, it is a very viable thing for a job, and it should be promoted, and then you should be able to call yourself an artist without feeling like, well, that's a sideline thing. Because that's when I grew up, it was like, well, artists are different people. They just think different, and they do, by the way. But that doesn't mean that it's a negative, and you shouldn't want to be one. There's no negative in it whatsoever. But when I grew up, it kind of was. And the reason was a very deep reason. My father was an artist and couldn't do it. And so that kind of permeated, my upbringing. So if this is anything like your family, if there's somebody that shows that in your family, gosh, promote it. And I know a lot of people that do. I think my family growing up was a little bit different. Other people, I think they probably encourage it. But I have a niece, and she's an artist, and it's amazing. And so, yeah, so it can happen, and you can do it, and it is hard. But is it harder than anything else? Yeah, maybe. But I've never had an easy job ever, So I don't know if that's worth any discussion at all. But there it is. So thanks a lot, Neil. Really appreciate it. Have a great night. He is in the UK, so it is very late his time. Have a wonderful one, sir. And I hope you have a great weekend. Good night, Neil. Your Instagram pics are amazing, aren't they? Hey, everybody, that's a great way to get familiar with Neil. Neil has now published and posted all of his pictures on Instagram and a lot of his pictures on Facebook. But I know, because he stated earlier this week, all of his pictures are now up on Instagram. This is how I discovered Neil. And when I first saw Neil, it was his cabin shots, and it was like an Indiana Jones figure. And I got to tell you, his cabin looks real, and it's snow. He does snow better than anybody I've ever seen. I've seen good snow. His is the best. And the depth, the fog, his World War I trench diorama that he's working on right now. I don't know the name of it. I think he told me at one point, and I'm sorry, Neil, I forgot. But my goodness, Neil does some wonderful stuff. He does some faces that look like real faces. He's that kind of guy. He can paint a face to look real, with the transparency of the flesh and the undertones and the blood veins and everything, the blemishes, everything. Neil does that. He's that guy. So yeah, please take a look at Neil's stuff. It is really wonderful and super inspiring. The mud, 100%. The mud, the dirt in this diorama and how it interacts with the wooden parts, the duck boards, the sandbags, stuff. That's all Neil's idea. I had done all of those elements before and hadn't treated them with the mud and the dirt that I think they really need. And Neil did. I saw it. And I'm like, well, there you go. That's it. And that's the wonderful thing about it. It's like maybe you knew, but until you see somebody that's highly skilled at it do it, you don't know. You just don't know. So yeah, go check out Neil. Fantastic. And by the way, I say this a lot, so this should not be the first time you've heard it. If you have pictures online, website, whatever, post it. If you don't want to post it here, do it in the comments. If you don't want to do it there, you want me to post it, send it to me. I will post your pictures. I really love the stuff that I see. I really love the stuff we saw from American Genius last week. I really love seeing that stuff because I get inspired by stuff, not that you did yesterday, not that you did last week. It could be stuff you did 10 years ago. There's lots of great stuff out there. So if you want to post your stuff up, do it, and I will get it out there too. And I'm always looking for someone to have on the show. And again, my apologies, I didn't get Neil's stuff up today. Scott says, cheers, Neil. Benny says, I am military too. I am in the German Air Force, Luftwaffe, in North Germany. Yes, Berlin is a very nice place. Wonderful, Benny. That's very, very cool. I got my German jump wings, my Fallschirmjäger when I was there. I went to the German jump school. And that was really, really a great experience. Yeah, I love Germany. Wonderful, wonderful place. John Hayes, have you added Americana or Easter egg stamp hidden in a diorama sort of calling card? I have a couple of times. One of the things that seemed to happen in my dioramas early on was skeletons. I like skeletons. I just think they're very interesting. You know, I think you have one, don't you? I have one. And so I think skeletons are great. And so I like to add skeletons or at least like a skull. There's no skeleton in here except there's an upper torso on the back and there's a skull in Captain Livin's office here. And the skull was meant to represent recognition of what he's doing. You know, he's making a weapon of mass destruction. That's what he's doing here. He is making, for the time, a massive flamethrower, of course. I wanted him to have some kind of reflection point in his office. I put there. I don't think he had one. I don't know if he had one or not. He might have. But I wanted to have some point of reflection in the scene that said, yes, I understand what I'm doing. And that makes it even more intriguing. I try to put symbolism and I try to put meaning into my dioramas. I really do. Because, you know, I base my dioramas on, you know, on movies. And movies are a lot about symbolism. Movies try to tell us something, try to get an idea across. They're trying to communicate something that the producer, director, writer, whatever is trying to communicate. And I'm doing the same thing here. And because movies are one of my main influences, I think trying to utilize some of the things that movies use is natural. I do see these as scenes, or I see them as sets for a particular scene. I mentioned earlier when John came on and said, you know, what about, you know, the voiceover sound effects, stuff like that. I am thinking about that very nebulously, but I have in my idea, and I've got a couple of like, this guy says something in the pose he's in, you know, that kind of thing. So I could shoot a little short, not a short, but like a little short film on that. I think it would be really fun. So anyway, that's an idea for the later, but yeah, I like that. And I love little Easter eggs. I love being able to find or put things in there that you really got to look. And it's that reward for looking an Easter egg. So, but yeah, so skulls and skeletons. Neil, what's your handle? I think just look up Neil Bullard. And I'll double check that afterwards. He might be gone now, Martin, but I will double check that. But I think it's just Neil Bullard in on Facebook. I will look on Instagram and see if I can post that, because I think he took off to go to bed. John Hayes, can you still get your scale Indiana Jones figure? I'm not sure. I think you probably can. The one that I have is the DX05. And my wife got it for me 4 or 5 years ago. And it's been out of production for at least twice that. So it's probably 15 years ago when it first came out, but I still think you can get some. I think she had to get hers direct from Hong Kong. She had to go overseas to get mine. But it's really great because it has the little pillar when he's in the temple at the beginning. It has his you can put a different uniform on him. The whole thing, I really like it. Bill, have you thought about a paratrooper diorama? I can't believe I never asked you that yet. That's a really good point, John. I have. When I did Wolfenstein, the shoot packers, that was kind of my airborne, kind of a tip of the hat to the airborne riggers that used to pack the chutes when I jumped out of airplanes. That was kind of that. But I think it would be very cool to do a tailgate. So I was in the peacetime army. Okay. I was not in the military during conflict, but one of the things that we did was on a weekend, and I only did a few times, but it was very cool. You can go because one of the battalions in the 82nd where I was stationed, they would have extra fuel. And if they didn't use up their fuel for a month or a quarter or whatever it was, they would lose it. So they would have a fun jump. So they would take a C-130 or whatever out there to one of the jump zones, or drop zones, I should say. See, it's been 35 years, 40 years. And they would land right on the drop zone. And then you pack up. You don't even actually have to be in uniform. Some units said you had to be in uniform. Other units said you could even wear civilian clothing. No weapons, just shoot and spare everything, and you go jump out of an airplane. And it's awesome. They just go right up off there and you just jump and you come down. And if you want to do more, you can. It's just however many shoots and how much fuel that they have. So I did that a bunch of times. And that was a lot of fun. I have seen some people simulate what is called a mass tack, where it's a mass tactical jump, where you're flying along and everybody's just dumping out, and there's like multiple planes of formation like they do in a mass tactical exercise. So I've seen that done a few times in diorama. What I've not seen is a tailgate, like a view of a tailgate with jumpers coming out of the tailgate of a C-130 or like a Chinook. I don't know. I've not seen that. I got to do it out of both, but I'd like to do a diorama of that, because it's a whole different thing. Instead of kind of going to a door and there's this little door, when they open the tail end of that aircraft, the whole world just opens up in front of you. It's amazing. So it's a very, very big different feeling doing a tailgate jump than jumping out of a door. And again, I never did any combat. I can't imagine what it's like there. My nephew, he does that kind of stuff. He's a Navy EOD diver. And so he does that kind of stuff. And man, I don't even know what that's like anymore. I only did static jumps and it was amazing. So that would be a fun diorama, but I think I would like to do it with the view from inside the aircraft, because all the detail on the inside of the aircraft, the skin of the aircraft, all the pipes and everything, and then the big doors and everything, all the hydraulics, good stuff. Okay, John says, movies and models come to mind would be stop motion. I think stop motion would be fine. Well, you remember when you were saying earlier about the little storyboards. I think I would like to shoot it like a storyboard because nobody's moving, obviously. but literally shoot it with like these real dynamic shots and, real low angles, high angles, close shots, real hyper extending the depth and stuff like that to get some like bokeh, all that kind of stuff. I think shooting a little video like that would be really fun, John. So it almost looks like a comic because I can't move them, and even the fact that they're glued in, so it becomes all about camera angles. But it's a great idea, and I am working on it. You have done military models. Be cool if you had military men and machines with real working searchlights focused at a UFO. I like that idea. One of the ideas that I had previously, and I kind of realized it, was the searchlight that I did for Narvik. Pardon me. So Narvik, I built a searchlight, and it was really cool. And while I was building that searchlight, I thought about searchlights up in the air, because I mean, that was like a big thing when I was growing up. I was talking to somebody about this maybe last week. It's funny about searchlights. I feel like searchlights used to be such a kind of a big deal, like movie premieres. I was talking to John Robeck about it, as a matter of fact. It'd be like movie premieres and stuff like that. Well, he still sees it because he's down in that area, but I don't see it like it would be in like, Oshkosh, Wisconsin, and, stars coming out and there's like searchlights. You know what I mean? It just, in the 70s and the 60s, it seems like it was a bigger deal. There was like a lot more searchlights out there. But I love the idea of searchlights. It does give me kind of a, what were those old 50s movies, the black and white, I Married an Alien and all that kind of stuff. I love those movies because of the searchlights and everything like that. So, great idea. Thanks, John. Scott says, hey, Bill, are you going to show the repair of the satellite model? Absolutely. Yeah. So I am going to do that. And I haven't started yet. I was going to start this week. This week was going to be my first week on that. And I just didn't because, there was a lot of stuff going on. But I was so close. I figured out, I thought I was further away on the WW1 Trench, honestly. And when I stood back and took the pictures and did all the studio shots and stuff like that, I realized, no, actually, I'm pretty much there. I've got like these little things that have been sitting around literally for a month. These are 2 teacups and a coffee cup, stuff like that. I got to get those in there. I've got a coffee grinder, which is really cool, which is more of a French thing, not a British thing, not a New Zealand thing, but there's going to be a coffee grinder in there. So, little things like that. And that even kind of goes back to what Martin was saying earlier. Am I dragging my feet? Am I not trying to start this thing? No, I think it's time to really get on, finish this thing up, do the space station, repair the Mir space station. I think that's going to be quite an interesting repair. I don't know how long it's going to take. And that's one of the reasons I think I need to get on it. I just don't know how long it's going to take. And I certainly don't want to be late. This is for the Museum of Flight in Seattle. So yeah, I got to get on that, and I will show it. It will be my daily short. Now, this is kind of weird. My daily shorts, I'm doing them, but if I don't have in the title literally WW1 Trench update, nobody sees my well, not nobody, but I go from like, I don't know, 2,000 views a day to 300. If I do any kind of a short that doesn't start with WW1 Trench update, it's very funny. So it's part of an algorithm thing. So if you don't see a short from me, it's there. And you like watching my shorts. I'm not saying everybody's watching my shorts. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying if you do like my shorts and you don't see one, it is there. I am posting daily. But because of that little tagline thing for WW1 Trench Diorama update, if that's not there, it doesn't prioritize it. So it doesn't shoot it out to folks, and it doesn't make it available for them. So I'm going to still do them. And I'm still doing a daily short. It's just as I transition to the next project, the name is going to change. For a week, I tried something stupid. And I didn't like it. Bill's Daily Builds. I was doing that and I'm thinking, can I do that every day? Builds, daily builds. Well, I can do it every day, but could I live with the name? No. So yeah, I got to figure something else out where, it is. So the algorithm picks it up so you can see it if you're interested in seeing it, because it seems to work that way. But it's different when I move from project to project. So anyway, well, folks, I think we're just about there. It has been an hour and 25 minutes. Holy buckets. That's crazy. I was going to say something else, but so anyway, so thank you very much for coming on. I think I've talked a fair amount about my Patreon, but I have a slide and I want to talk about my Patreon because these are really great folks and they do just wonderful things and they help me do this. And I just want to talk about them and invite you to become a Patreon too. So the Patreon thing is, I've got like different things where I post, and that's okay, I guess. Some people really like that. I don't see a lot of people looking at my posts. Personally, I think the funnest thing for me, at least, is the group build, and that's on Friday nights. I have talked about moving it to a different day, so that's possible. But I like doing it on Friday nights, and I like it with John and me. It's mostly just John and me, but I really like it. And so I think that's one of the bigger advantages of having it is we just kind of have a hangout and we build. But there's other advantages to it. So if you're interested, and to include one-on-one time with me, because that's the other thing. You can get where we get online and you've got an idea for a diorama. And you're not, I got this idea and I got that idea and I don't know. Well, I'm pretty good at putting that stuff together, as you may have seen. So if you want, that is one of the things that I offer too. If you're at a certain level of my patrons, like every other month, we have a 30-minute call and we just get on the line, just not like this because we're both online, we're talking, but we look at what your ideas are and we help you figure stuff out. So anyway, if you're interested in that, take a look at my Patreon. It's pretty cool. I also have memberships on YouTube now, which is pretty cool. And right now it's just like a wave thing. It's like you get an icon. But as I said before, I'm kind of thinking of doing kind of the Patreon thing on YouTube because then I only have to do it on YouTube, which I like YouTube. I think it's great. So anyway, that's what's going on here. I hope you are having a wonderful weekend ahead of you. I'm going to be in the shop. I got some folks saying hi and bye, and I want to show them. And then I am going to get out of here and start my weekend too. Martin says, thanks, Bill. Great stuff. Thank you, Martin. I really appreciate you coming on. John, have a great night. Thank you too, John. And I hope you have a nice night. It's getting late there. You still got light, but not for too much longer. Have a great one, John. Great seeing you. Jordy, thanks, Bill. Have a great weekend. And thank you very much for coming on, Jordy. That was really, really cool having you on. And I hope you come back. It's different every time, and it's usually a train wreck. This is less of a train wreck this week, but I'll run it into the ground next week. So have a great one, everybody. I hope you have a great weekend, and we'll see you next week. Bye.